ask him to do that now.
Okay, so where is Radha Krishna? This person who's prepared something nice for this evening. So before speaking, let me take a moment to pay my respects and my gratitude to my spiritual teachers, to Nityananda, Chaitanya, and to Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimati Siddha Swarupananda, Paramahamsa Iti Namini, Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadha, Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so people who've been coming, regularly for a while, there's a certain amount of different things we speak about. So there's also some people who've not come as often or as regularly, or I don't know, they may even be the first time tonight. So I'm very happy to take any questions you might have or any topics you'd like to hear about or anything like that. It's, you know how they have buskers, you walk up and you say, look, can you play me, a Coldplay song or something, and they'll play some version of it. Does anyone have any topics? And then I'll do my best to share what I have been given. Not you. I don't like her, so I don't have to answer her questions. No, she gets to ask plenty of questions. It's a friend of mine. So we take those questions another time. Is that all right? Yeah. No, we have other gatherings and catch-ups, so just in case you don't know, she's a friend of mine. Are we? We're friends, aren't we? We are? All right, okay, good. Yeah, no? Yeah, no? Okay, it's up to me then. But what I was thinking, something that did come to mind, again, whether you have been coming regularly to hear us, or part of the meditation or yoga or whatever it might be, there is something that you will hear regularly, constantly, over and over and over and over again, as far as yoga wisdom goes. Does anyone have any idea what that you would hear regularly over and over and over again? This certain idea, this teaching of yoga. Just shout it out. What could that be?
Balance.
No, I don't talk about balance hardly ever. How about aham brahmasmi? How often have you heard me speak about we are not our bodies, we are not the mind, we are the Atma, the spiritual self within the body, and how this body is like a vehicle that we're walking around in? How many people have heard me talk about that? Yeah, hopefully everybody. So what struck me for today is I was reading, okay, that's interesting, we've heard it, come on. Do you think we're idiots? Week in, week out, you say the same thing. Now, even though it is very easy to grasp, applying it, how it impacts upon our life is what we need to meditate on. Because otherwise it can just kind of go, shh, oh yeah, I know that. But do we truly know that? Do we actually know that reality? That we are not our bodies, and we are not our mind, we are not our thoughts, we are not our desires, we are not our worries, we are not our problems. It has nothing to do with me, the real self, the true self, the eternal spiritual being, who is an eternal part of the supreme spiritual being. How do we apply it? So one thing came to mind today. Somewhere, somehow, I was reading an article about this gentleman who was waiting in line at a bakery. I don't know if anyone else read this. And the person who was waiting, who's writing the article, was 65 years old, so around about my age. And around about the age of, 95% of the people in this room. No, that's a joke. Anyway, the person in front of him in the line to get some bread or whatever it was of a similar age. And the person who's writing the article got upset by what the person behind the counter said to the person in front of him in the queue. So the guy's in his 60s. And the person serving said, "What can I do for you, young fella?" That's what the person, young person behind the counter says, "What can I do for you, young fella?" So the guy's in his mid to late 60s. That's the Australian way, isn't it? How you doing, young fella? So obviously he's not a young fella, right? He's old like me. So the person who's writing the article was very upset by this. He thought it was ageist. Ageist. Well, we have so many ists these days. There's so many things that that actually disturb us, isn't there? There's so many things that cause anxiety, cause worry, to a person, makes them feel unsafe, all kind of things, right? So yoga wisdom, the wisdom of understanding our true eternal spiritual nature and our relationship with the Supreme Soul, eliminates all of these worries and problems and concerns from a person's life. When, even if we only philosophically have some idea of that reality, let alone if we actually have realization of that reality, it takes away so much of the problems, both socially and personally, that every single one of us in this world experience. I am not my body. That means I am not the labels, the titles that are on this body, which is not me. This body is like a suit of clothes, which I, the eternal self, am wearing. So if I walked into a shop and someone said, "Yeah, what do you want, greenie?" Because I have a green shirt on. This is a really nice green. I like this green. I identify with this green. Why are you attacking me? Why don't you like me? What do you think? Should I be upset if someone doesn't like my shirt? I shouldn't be upset if the guy doesn't like my shirt. The guy doesn't like green, maybe, right? So knowing that I'm not my clothes takes away all the problems. Maybe, let's say, because my wife said, that shirt wasn't really ironed before we went out today. It would have been good to iron it. So it's a little bit wrinkly. But if someone says, "Oh, you're an old wrinkly," isn't that what they called old people as well? They call them, when I was a kid, we used to call them old wrinklies. That was basically anyone over 30. It was an old wrinkly compared to a 12 or a 13 or a 15-year-old particularly. So if my shirt is wrinkly, and I look in the mirror and see I have a wrinkly shirt, and someone, as I'm walking down the street, some punk kid said, "G'day, wrinkly shirt," I'm not going to be too upset by it. Are you getting the gist of what I'm trying to say here? As soon as we know that we are not our bodies, then all of the problems which are in connection with this body, both personally, individually, and socially, are eliminated. There is no such thing as equality in this world. It does not exist, and it will never exist. We cannot bring about... What's that? There's a line comes to mind in one of the Police, Sting's song. There is no political solution to our troubled evolution. And he's spot on. We try to arrange... I'm not saying that we shouldn't have political change and this and that. Don't get me wrong. But ultimately it is not the solution. Material solution cannot actually find a solution to a spiritual problem. Okay, so now there's also what is known as body positivism, because people engage in fat shaming, right? But so the problem is that if I identify myself with this particular body I have, whether it be black, white, Chinese, from the Middle East, tall, short. I even remember reading over the years that people like myself, like handsome people, actually have better chance in jobs than short, ugly people. There's just a statistic. I'm not like just throwing this out there. Tall people tend to get jobs, in interviews rather than short people. Sorry, it's not my doing. I'm bringing the message here. Apparently it's true. So there's, what do you call it, heightism? Is that what you'd call it? Discrimination based on height. Then there's discrimination based on sex, discrimination based on ethnicity. So many things, right, where there's problems. Self-esteem. There's a whole problem where people feel unworthy. They don't feel worthy for whatever reason, due to socialising, due to TikTok and Instagram, and before that it was magazines and things like that, and what the ideal body looks like, right? It's not something new. It's now just exacerbated due to social media. There's a certain standard we call beautiful, and something else we call ugly, or fat, or skinny, right? Etc., etc. All based upon the appearance of one's body. Does my bum look flat in this? There's all kind of things, people checking in the mirror before you go out. So many things. Then you can turn to, like loneliness. You can turn to things like the fear of death. All kind of things. These problems are solved with spiritual wisdom and love. They are the solution to all personal and social problems that we find in the world. In the same way that you're an idiot if you discriminate against me because you don't like green shirts, similarly, if we discriminate against others because of the colour of their body, the sex of their body, the size of their body, then you're an idiot. Because we are not our bodies. It has nothing to do with who the real person is. So the solution to all these problems is actually spiritual. Ultimately, there is no political solution to our troubled evolution, because it's all based on a misunderstanding, on a falsehood, on ignorance. It's based on the ignorance that I am this material body. The identities in connection with this body, the shape of the body, the age of the body, the size of the body, the colour of the body, this is who I am, and this is who other people are. So it's based on ignorance, and anything based on ignorance will cause problems. Anything based on wisdom brings solution, brings joy, brings harmony. So, obviously I'm just kind of, touching on the surface of so many things. We could pick any one of these things and dive down into it, drill down into it, as they say. And I could give you a very clear understanding how wisdom and uncovering our relationship with the Supreme Soul, that relationship of love, solves all personal and social problems. Now, if someone wanted to pick one, any topic, personal or social, we can explore it and see how wisdom is actually the solution. So, gee, I didn't think I was actually going to get anything.
Do you mind if I ask a question? I learned meditation yoga over 50 years ago.
50 years, you don't look a day over 70.
Thanks, I'll be 72
I know, that's why I said it. Now, actually, you won't be 72 in...
Well, I used to go to church for over 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And then we used to go to Bible study. Now, I don't know how many people told me that you can be a murderer, a rapist, bash people, and if in the last 5
I don't do that anymore.
last 5 minutes, well, it wasn't, all that long ago that I went to church. This is people that used to run Bible study. In the last 5 minutes of your life, if you decide to take Jesus in and believe that he died on the cross for your sins and his resurrection, you'll go to heaven.
Uh-huh.
So there's no reward there for being a nice person. Whereas a good person who's done good deeds all his
I remember when I was a kid, there was saying, I want to go to hell because that's where all the fun people are. Yeah, that's where all the blues musicians were and all the pot smokers. And look, to be honest, those who were at home probably couldn't hear the question. It was about the idea in some Christian traditions about, you can be a murderer, a rapist, a pedophile, anything horrendous. And then in the last moment of your last breath, you say you accept Jesus and he died on the cross for our sins, and then you'll go to heaven. But someone else who led a good life and didn't do that in their life, they will go to hell, right? So that's a big topic. It's not possible for me to comment on some other teaching or philosophy of which I don't adhere. So I can't really comment on how they, what they mean by that, because I'm not teaching that.
Well, they used to, I used to tell them at the Bible study, I used to do yoga and meditation. And they told me I'm praying to a Hindu god, and I'm praying by doing yoga and salute to the sun. I'm praying to all of these gods.
Right.
So just to keep the peace, I said a white lie, I won't do it anymore, but I continue to do it anyway.
Yeah, intelligent. That's intelligent. All I can tell you is this. According to yoga wisdom and the great acharyas of all traditions, of all countries, teach that we are not our bodies. We are the eternal self. It is not like we have a soul. We talk about this regularly. None of us here has a soul. Nobody. Not one of you has a soul. No. You are the soul, and you have a body. There's a very, very profound difference between those two ideas. If you are your body, in other words, I am Ray, I am 68 years old, I am an Australian, this and that, and I have a soul. That's not true. I am the person, the self, the Atma. The real self is eternal, Satchitananda, eternal, full of wisdom and bliss. And I am part of the Supreme Soul. And at this particular part of my journey, I have this particular body on. It is Caucasian, right? European. It's got this name, this family it was born into. But that has nothing to do with me at all. It has nothing to do with me, the self, the person. In the same way that I have nothing to do with where my shirt was made. Let's say this shirt is made in Sri Lanka, right? Because a lot of clothing is made in Sri Lanka. Does that mean I am Sri Lankan? That's my identity because my shirt is made there? No. It has nothing to do with me. It's something I am wearing. I'm the person wearing it. So similarly, this gross and subtle body, the gross body means this stuff, the subtle body means the mind, intelligence, false ego. They are not me. I am wearing these different layers of material coverings or clothing. So I am the eternal self. For me, there is never birth nor death. Eternality is my nature, which means no beginning. Not like I was born in this life, my existence came into being, when my mother and father had sex. Before that, I didn't exist, but I will exist eternally going forward. No, that's not eternal. That's a beginning. So eternal means that which has no beginning and never ends. I, the self, you, every single one of us, are eternal. We existed before this particular suit of clothes. Like, I've got this black pants on and this green shirt. I existed before I put these on at 3 o'clock. My birth, the birth of this body, was 3 o'clock, right? Before I put this particular clothing on, I existed. When I go home, I take these off, I'll put on my jammies, and I will still exist, even though I won't be wearing this particular suit of clothes. So that is the nature of each one of us. We are eternal, ever existing, undying. due to our actions in various lifetimes, if you want to call it that, then there is the law of karma. The law of karma means as we sow, so shall we reap. So each progressive part of our journey, we are meant to learn, ultimately to come to the platform of transcendence, where we actually realize our real nature. We act upon who we really are. We cultivate or uncover our eternal relationship with the Supreme Soul. And then the ultimate goal is to come to the platform of transcendence, the platform of self-realization. We live our life based upon this reality, motivated by spiritual love, because that is the nature of the self. Not only are we eternal, our nature, we are made of spirit, we are made of love. That is our very essence of who we are. So when we are on this platform of self-realization and we act upon it in this world, we will not exploit others, we will actually care for others, we will be tolerant of others, we will try to help others. This is the nature of the self. And then, having reached this platform of transcendence, attachment in love to the Supreme Soul, then at that point, when we leave this particular body behind, we go to the Supreme. So in that way, we understand our destiny is in our hands by how we live each life. So this is our understanding from the point of view of yoga wisdom. So we can cultivate this spiritual love and this self-realization through the various practices that have been given to us by the saintly persons, the acharyas, the sages, and by applying this spiritual wisdom and these meditations and sadhana, spiritual practices, every single one of us can come to the platform of pure love for the Supreme. So this is all I can explain. I cannot explain what, someone else is teaching and why they teach that. But I can only explain this is our understanding from the point of view of yoga wisdom. Thank you very much.